Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, and I've been thinking a lot about how to approach what happened yesterday in Nashville. As you all know, there was a horrific shooting at a Christian school. 3 children were killed, as well as 3 teachers, and the gunman as well. The gunman has been identified as a transgender former student at the school by the name of Audrey Hale. And that transgender issue has awakened a dark obsession within the legacy media, the likes of which I've got to say has disheartened even me, your patriot professor, your beacon of hope and optimism. I've got to admit, I think there's just something particular about the shooting and the utterly shameless coverage it's been getting by a soulless legacy media that's frankly just deflating for me today. I know we're winning. I know that conservatives are fast replacing woke leftists demographically at every level at an incredibly fast pace. All the data shows precisely that. I know we will replace them as the majority, the super majority soon. But reading and listening to these legacy media and leftist reactions, this blatant partisan propagandistic absurdity that would make Kim Jong-un blush at how utterly over the top it is, I just have to admit it's deflated even me, your patriot professor. I think just the utter soullessness of it, the verbal and rhetorical darkness, totally emancipated from any semblance of moral awareness. I've just found it all very disillusioning, to be honest with you. You would think that the political left would have at least some semblance of genuine humanity left to express at a moment like this. But no, you won't find even the most basic disposition of empathy or compassion in the least. Exhibit A, NBC News and New York Times contributor Benjamin Ryan, in a now deleted tweet, decided to use this event to highlight how transphobic are the likes of Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles, and the whole of the Daily Wire. This pathological ideologue informed us not only that the Nashville shooter was transgender, but also that Nashville is the home to the Daily Wire, a hub of anti-trans activity. That was put forward as news. That was tweeted as a credible assessment by a professional journalist. Now, as if this NBC New York Times contributor weren't revolting enough, other leftist outlets were busy concocting their own anti-conservative spin. Here's ABC's Terry Miranda and his take on what this shooting was really about.
All right, that is Police Chief John Drake of Nashville, who is briefing reporters on the deadly grade school shooting in Nashville at the Covenant School there this morning. The police confirming 6 dead, 3 children, 1 8 years old, 2 9 years old, and 3 adults, including Catherine Kuntz, who is the head of the Covenant School. The police chief also said that the shooter has been identified as 28-year-old female Audrey Hale. He said she's a former student of the school and confirmed that Audrey Hale was identified herself as a transgender person. State of Tennessee earlier this month passed and the governor signed a bill that banned transgender medical care for minors, as well as a law that prohibited adult entertainment, including male and female impersonators, after a series of drag show controversies in that state.
Now, of course, that legislation signed into law in Tennessee had to do with underage children. Audrey Hale, the shooter, was nearly 30 years old. It's as if these so-called reporters were having a race towards repulsiveness. What possible relevance? I mean, seriously, Terry, draw the straight line for us between what the shooter did and Tennessee legislation aimed at children. We know what the straight line is. It is the blatant propaganda that is blaming this shooting on conservative society. A tweet by a fellow by the name of George Alicio said it best. Did not expect Dem mouthpiece Terry Miranda to repeat the party line so quickly. Yeah, so quickly and so obviously inhumanely. And speaking of inhumane, the ultra-leftist David Pakman said this in a now deleted tweet. Very surprising that there would be a mass shooting at a Christian school, given that lack of prayer is often blamed for these horrible events. Is it possible they weren't praying enough or correctly despite being a Christian school? Dre Humphrey responded to that filth with this: "You mock the faith of slain children and their mourning families, knowing it's possible they lost their innocent lives due to an act of hate against them for their religious beliefs. Are the likes you've gained from your recklessly Christophobic tweet worth your moral stain?" I can't think of a better term, moral stain, to describe the whole of this tragic event. You may not know this, and of course you wouldn't if you relied on the legacy media for your daily diet of information. This shooting happened on the very same week that trans activists had slated for what they called a day of vengeance against the supposed intolerance against trans people. And they specifically targeted the city of Nashville. Now, am I saying the two events are linked? No, I am not. But I am asking, if this were a white supremacist group calling for a day of vengeance against, let's say, the city of Nashville, and an avowed white supremacist walked into a predominantly black school and shot everyone up, do you think the legacy media might make a connection between those two events? You bet your ass they would. So what the hell is going on here? Why are they so obviously stretching and forcing a connection between this shooting and anti-trans bigotry? Seriously. Apart from their utter hearts of darkness, what's going on here? Well, we're going to answer precisely that, gang. But first, as you can see, the whole system is just utterly rigged against all of us who love faith, family, and freedom. And we're not going to play by their rules anymore. It is time for all of us to opt out of this rigged system and move our cash into gold and silver now before it's too late. And that's where our good friends over at Goldco come in, gang. Click on that link below and learn the 3 simple steps you can take right now to protect your savings with gold and silver. In fact, Goldco, our patriots are just like us, and they're offering up to $10,000 in free silver while supply lasts. So don't wait. Click on that link below or visit my special website, turleytalkslikesgold.com. It looks like the motive for the shooting will be no mystery. Law enforcement has revealed that the shooter left behind a detailed manifesto on what precisely was behind the attack, replete with maps of the school grounds. So it appears that what the legacy media is doing right now is they're trying to muddy the waters. They're trying to obfuscate what will be, in all likelihood, it'll turn out to be a blatant far-left murderous horror. Again, we'll all know once the manifesto is released, but it appears as if the legacy media is working overtime to distance a certain identity group, a group associated with left-wing politics, from any culpability in this whatsoever, while making some of the most tortured arguments imaginable to incriminate groups that are associated with right-wing politics. We see this, of course, every time there's a shooting that involves, say, an Islamic assailant. The legacy media works in lockstep to repel as repugnantly Islamophobic the mere suggestion that the shooter acted in accordance with a wider ideological commitment. It was an isolated event, nothing to see here, move on, you Islamophobes. But when the shooter is a white police officer and the victim is black, this is clearly indicative of systemic racism. Now, I think this all can be explained by virtue of the ideological commitment that's commonly referred to as cultural Marxism. Now, of course, these aren't economic Marxists. Even China's thrown away that model. The legacy media is largely comprised of what we commonly refer to as cultural Marxists. They have the same oppressor-oppressed binary that economic Marxists had, but they understand that binary in cultural terms, in racial, ethnic, gender, sexual, even environmental terms. And the important point here is that there isn't a liberal bone in the cultural Marxist body. It's inherently tyrannical and totalitarian precisely because it doesn't allow for any legitimate dissent. And so every news event has to be spun in such a way that disparages and denigrates dissenters. If you have a worldview that doesn't allow for dissent, dissenters are by definition profane. They're infidels, and they must be excommunicated. And that's precisely what this legacy media so-called news coverage seeks to do. It seeks to denigrate Daily Wire and conservative legislatures in Tennessee, not because they have anything to do with the horror at the Covenant School, but simply because they deserve to be denigrated. This is why I have to admit that even your patriot professor, your purveyor of hope and optimism, even I'm just utterly disillusioned at the vile viciousness that spews daily from the heartless depths of woke liberals. Ironically, as it turns out, these legacy media Marxists are only guaranteeing their own destruction, in that even liberals like Bill Maher and Piers Morgan, Elon Musk, they're all rejecting it. So it is ultimately doomed to fail. But until then, the question, of course, is how much damage do they inflict in the meantime? All legacy media narratives seek to divide our nation along cultural Marxist lines. And as such, President Trump is right. The legacy media truly is the enemy of the American people. And yesterday's tragic event only further underscored for me how horrific they really are. As always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. You'll definitely want to check out my latest video on the indictment backfiring as the case against President Trump implodes. You're not going to want to miss this. So make sure to click on the link and I'll see you over there. God bless.